I'll go to the next question from Inga, who couldn't manage the technology, and that is, for a newbie in London, what gallerists, dealers, curators would Tim recommend to contact that are keenly interested to work with young, contemporary, figurative, historical, socio-political painters?
I think there's no shortcut. There's no point in me giving you a list of people who seem to be interested in that kind of art. You have to go around, you have to go to the galleries, you have to look at what they're showing. This is where art fairs are quite useful, and I don't just mean the mainstream, you know, the major art fairs like Frieze and Basel and so on. I mean, there are small-scale art fairs that take place separately, and often it's where galleries showcase the kind of art that they work, the kind of artists they work with. And I think you've got to look at those kind of galleries, and you've got to work out which of them are showing the kind of art that you're interested in and you feel that chimes. I think that's a much better way than me saying this curator likes this kind of art, this curator likes this kind of art. I mean, you're not going to get a shortcut to then send your slides to a particular curator at a major institution who's going to go, yep. They don't think like that. They don't think I'm interested in this kind of art, even if it's clear to us looking at the kind of programming that they're doing that they may be. I think you have to look, and I think that there's no substitute for getting around the galleries. But what are you saying? Politically motivated, social, figurative painting? No, I can't. It's very difficult to say, because a lot of the galleries have very pluralistic approaches anyway. I mean, there are certain galleries of the major galleries in the world, like Marion Goodman, who have a very taut conceptual rigor. Lisson Gallery was very interested in sort of minimal and post-minimal art and has quite a tight stable in that way. White Cube works with a variety of different artists. You know, you don't get a greater variety of artists than someone like Miroslav Balka or Doris Salcedo, to Mark Bradford, to Gilbert and George, to Tracy Emin, to Rachel Kneebone. There's a great variety, and it's interesting in that way. So I think, I'm afraid the only substitute is to look at the galleries and you work out what chimes best with your kind of art, really.
Sophie, could we go to you for your second question?
I just need to find it.
It's about choosing what gets displayed.
Yeah. When you curate an exhibition, how do you go about choosing what's displayed and why?
Well, there's so many different kinds of exhibitions. You know, if you're doing an historical exhibition about Rubens and the impact he's had on art history, as we're going to do at the Royal Academy next year, you want to tell an historical story, you want to make certain comparisons, you want to try and bring surprising objects together, you want to bring familiar objects together. So you're telling an historical story, really, or exploring an historical narrative of sorts. If you're curating a show of contemporary art with a single artist, you want to facilitate the space in which they feel able to show their work in the most creative way possible. I think you want to often try and give them a space and let them do as much as possible and guide wherever they want. But I think there's always two aspects to an exhibition. One is a kind of visual and intellectual coherence, and the other is a sense of physical spectacle. In other words, you want to make something that is visually arresting and that's physically arresting, because even if you're dealing with fundamentally with ideas and visual media and technological media and so on, it's still about the physical encounter in the space of various things. And so you always have to, I think, try and make something that is physically powerful, or as physically powerful as possible, physically arresting as possible, as well as something that that has a certain intellectual coherence. Incidentally, chaos and mess can have an intellectual coherence. I'm not saying I want everything ordered and minimal, but there has to be a rationale to doing something. I think whimsy and doing things that just seem superficially strategic and kind of one-linerish usually get usually get found out. And I think that you're trying to make something that encourages people to spend a certain amount of time with it. I mean, I think that if you get people who want to keep coming back to the shows that you've made, and that you find people want to spend a lot of time in those exhibitions, you've done part of your job right. But it's often that intuition and that you can spend a lot of time trying to plan shows on using computer programs, and you can spend a lot of time trying to hang shows using architectural models. But the show is only ever fully realizable in the flesh. And it's interesting that often you can work out that certain objects are the right combinations, but just the detail of the way things are hung or displayed, and the physical shifting of various things, is very interesting. It makes a fundamental difference. So never neglect those kind of details. You know, don't think that technology or pre-planning can do it all, but do as much of it as you can.
Thank you. Marta, could we go to you for the last question of this session? Thanks very much.
My question is, how did you get first started in the art world?
I started in the art world. I read history at university and then wanted to specialise in art history, so I did postgraduate work. I did an MA and then a PhD that I'd never quite finished my thesis. But I think there's an interesting parallel there with what you perhaps are all thinking about as artists, which is that certainly art school, certainly postgraduate work if possible, but finding ways of pursuing. I mean, you don't have to do formal study, but I think you need to find ways to keep pursuing what you're doing. And in fact, my career, I never had a career map. I didn't know where I wanted to end up. I still don't. But I knew that I wanted to be involved in different aspects of the art world. I wanted to be a critic. I wanted to be a commentator, a broadcaster. I wanted to put shows on. I wanted to fundamentally spend time with artists. And as long as you have a sense of what you want to do, some of you will be very driven that you'll know exactly the kind of trajectory. Some of you will think, actually, I want to explore in the deepest way possible aspects of the human body and figurative painting. Others will think, I want to explore a whole variety of technological media in order to try and make sense of the world. These are decisions for you all to make. But the important thing is to keep doing those things. The important thing is to keep finding ways of either training or exhibiting and keep pursuing it, even if on the side you have to earn money in different ways. But I kept all my options open. I often would agree to do things without thinking that they had definite strategical value. I just thought, no, that's quite interesting. And actually, the more you expose yourself to things, the more you're open to opportunities. I found the more opportunities then keep presenting themselves. But it's difficult to give advice based on one's own career to everyone else, because some people may have very, very focused aims and objectives. But from my experience, being open to all sorts of possibilities has been the best thing. But you know, I still don't know where I want to end up in 10 years' time. Probably living in a shack on a beach writing wouldn't be a bad thing, actually. But who knows?
Okay, thank you so much for Tim and for his patience, and for all of you for sticking with this. It's been really challenging, this one. We've never had one as challenging as this, but credit to you all for doing that. And I hope you got lots out of it. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah.
Enjoy is the wrong word, actually. It was a challenge, total challenge. You were all great. It's a much better than if we could physically converse. Never mind. That's what I mean. That's why exhibitions matter. That's why your art, whatever it is, showing it in real spaces, being confronted by real people, there is no substitute for it. This technology is simply a means to an end, not an end in itself.
Well, thank you. I mean, you've been able to get to talk to Tim directly. He's a really busy man, and you've come from Greece and Chicago and the rest of England. And thank you so much for sticking with it. See you then. Goodbye.